Hi everyone, I hope you're all doing well. Just wanted to provide an update for this week and also talk a little bit about last week and the work and the quiz that we have from last week. So first, again, I will, kind of following up on the email I sent. I apologize for, kind of being off the grid a little bit over the weekend. It was certainly it wasn't a complete shock that my father-in-law passed away, but it was a shock. We didn't expect it to come at this time. There was nothing that was telling us that it was going to happen at that time. So it kind of took us off guard, and it was difficult. So I do apologize. I am once I get finished with this, I'm hoping to go in and finish up grading and whatnot for this class, and hopefully get y'all back up to caught up to where we're at. Another update on that front, it doesn't actually look like we're going to probably have services until next week. So I am currently in Pittsburgh, and we're not in Pittsburgh anymore. We're actually living in Florida. So my husband's in Florida. I'm in Pittsburgh. My father-in-law's in New York. Kind of a confusing situation, but so for right now, it's kind of status quo, and so I should be available. I shouldn't have that much lack of availability. We haven't gotten things set up yet for services, but next week is likely going to be the funeral up in New York. So hopefully, I'll have everything caught up and we'll be good to go. And then, I might just be a little more delayed on responding to an email or whatnot than normal during that short time. But we should be good to go for right now. Okay, so let's talk a little bit about. Actually, let's go to week 2. So last week we talked about mainly about literature reviews. So when you're doing research, you want to you want to determine a research problem. So what is the problem that you want to take a look at? So something like gosh, what is how are how are hospital staff coping with COVID? That could be a research problem. The problem is that actually the problem is more like, um, you know, how is there an impact on hospital staff due to COVID? Which I think we all know that there probably is. Then the research question is really about, what are we going to dig into? So we might dig into what are hospital staff, or maybe even a specific type of staff, like what are ICU nurses doing to cope with the stress of being on a COVID floor. So that could be our research problem or a research question. What are the coping mechanisms? And I'm sure we would find things, everything from people going out and exercising, or doing yoga, or well, I guess that's exercise, or running, or meditating, or those types of things, to unhealthy coping mechanisms like eating food that's bad for you, or drinking a lot of alcohol, or taking drugs or something like that. I'm sure we would probably see the gamut. So that you have your problem. We know there's a problem with stress and coping due to COVID. We have our question, so we're looking for something very specific. When you first start to do a research project, you want to have that literature review. So you want to go out, especially when you're doing a major research project, like for a doctoral dissertation or a master's thesis. You want it to be something that is novel and new. You don't necessarily want to just do the same reviews that other people have done in the past. Sometimes it's kind of hard to find a novel and new things anymore, because there's so many things out there. But you're usually trying to find at least a new niche in whatever it is that you're looking at. So that's where the literature review comes in. So when you choose a research problem or a research question, or both, and then you want to go out and dig into the literature to see what's out there already. Literature reviews are only going to go back a certain number of years. I'm usually good with like 10 years back. I know there's some faculty that are not. Some like 5 years back. The area that I do research in, which tends to be wellness, tends like within 10 years is a pretty good mix of getting a historical look at wellness, meaning when wellness programs and those types of things were really became active, and we started to see policy making on wellness. And then moving forward into the more newer research within the last few years. So it's good to have a mix, I think, in a literature review and get an idea of what's out there and what others have seen. And then you can go from there. So that's the purpose of the literature review. Like I had said before, and I'm sure I said it. I may not have said it in this because I recorded it before we kind of matched this up with the thesis class. But what would be good here is to dig into something you're really interested in that can help you when you get to your thesis class, which most of you are probably taking next term, and some of you might be taking it now. But think about topics, for when you're digging into these things in this class, to actually look at things that you'd be interested in doing your thesis on. Okay, so that's it. That was last week, and we had discussion. We had the human subjects protection, and then our, kind of starting that literature review process. So let's look at this week. This week we're going to start talking about methodology. So when you do a research project, you need to have a sound research methodology. And there's a multitude of different types of research, which we've talked about some already, but think qualitative and quantitative research, mixed methods, which is a combination of the two, and then all of the things underneath all of them. I am typically a qualitative researcher, which means that my research is not numeric or statistically based. It's based in narrative from my participants. So my participants will provide me with data that is their story, typically, and they'll share with me information. Sometimes some of my research I've done is interview-based, so I actually one-on-one with someone. Could be focus groups, could be a survey where they fill in information anonymously in a survey. So all of those things can fall within that. There are as many types of research as you might do, there are equally as many methodologies. There's always someone that's twisting something, making it a little bit different. But the one thing that's key is that there are things that you want to avoid in research. So you want to avoid bias. So you should never do research on something that you have an internal bias about. You should avoid that. So let's say that I hate fruit. I have an apple sitting on my desk, so that's what made me think of it. But I really don't like fruit. So you should probably not do research on fruit because you have an immediate internal bias, and it will, if you're just looking at data, it might be okay. But if you're doing something like a qualitative survey and gathering info, you probably should not be, because of your existing bias, it will likely taint the study. So you don't want to, you wouldn't want to research things that you have a bias about. So, we, actually, no, it wasn't in this class. It was in the last class that I was recording for. But we were talking about law and ethics, and I had mentioned abortion, that it's legal, but many people don't feel it's ethical. And you guys in this class have heard me say that already because I talk about that in 2400 and 1275. So you've heard that story. If I was a very strong pro-life or pro-choice person, one way or the other, I probably shouldn't be doing research on abortion because I have a strong feeling one way or the other, and I would not be able to look at it with an unbiased eye. And even though we may try and say that we can, we oftentimes can't. So bias is very important. And I'll share one other brief example there. So I did my doctoral dissertation on workplace wellness programs, but I did it specifically on wellness programs in the fire service, so career firefighters, professional firefighters, and the wellness programs in their world. The reason I chose that was because my husband was a professional firefighter at the time. He's now retired, but he was a professional firefighter, and he lost a colleague on a shift. They were working together on a shift to a heart attack. And had they had a more robust wellness program in place, they probably would have caught whatever caused this. He seemed to be quite fit. He wasn't one that ate a bunch of junk or whatever, like a lot of the guys do. And so it was really a shock. when I first chose that as my topic, I remember going to my dissertation chair, and I did my doctoral work at Creighton University in Nebraska, and my dissertation chair said, "No, you shouldn't do that topic because you have bias there. You'll be looking to find that those wellness programs are effective." And so I actually twisted. I because I was originally going to look at effectiveness, and so I ended up twisting my topic, and I looked at barriers to implementation. So I didn't have a bias there. I didn't know why people weren't implementing these programs. So I actually even had to change my own doctoral research so that I was not researching something that I already had an existing bias about. Reliability and validity are also very important. So we need to make sure that that our data is valid. And that it's reliable, meaning that if we ask a similar group of people the same question, they give us the same answer again. So it needs to be reliable and valid, so that your study could be replicated. So that's kind of the key to doing a research study, is that hopefully someday someone will replicate it and get some more results to corroborate your results, and then it'll prove that you're right and they're right, and all is good. The problem is when somebody goes to replicate your study and they can't corroborate it, and then it calls your study into question and your study methodology. So all of this kind of relates back to one another. So that is our work for this week, is to study that topic. We're also going to look at this. Well, actually, it's right here. I would say it's not even linked up there, but this, and hopefully this is the one. I had to update it for the class. Yeah, there are a ton of, as you dig into these books or into this site, there are a ton of books and journals. And probably the journals will be most helpful to you, but a ton of books and journals that are specific to health administration. A few of the journals that I really like: Health Affairs, great journal. Obviously, things like JAMA and those are really good. And I'm not even seeing the one. Let me. Academy Health. I'm fairly sure that they also have a journal, but maybe they don't. Maybe they just have a conference. Professional resources. Yeah, maybe they just have a conference. But you may see, like if you did a search in CINAHL. Oh, journals. Let's see. Yeah, see, they're just listing some of their research in various journals. So Academy Health is a great site for research. They're probably one of the most reputable research conferences that occurs every year, that encompasses healthcare administration as well as many other aspects of healthcare. But so that is a great site as well, and a lot of their conference proceedings would probably be searchable in CINAHL. So you would probably find them in this CINAHL database. Talked about CINAHL last week in the textbook, and then there's more information about it here. So as you're looking at things, the one thing to keep in mind is that there are journals out there that are kind of junky, and I know the textbook talks about that as well. But there is, there are what they call predatory journals, although they're trying not to, all of that is kind of rolled back a little bit from the way it was a few years back. But there still are journals that are, instead of being truly peer reviewed, they're kind of pay to play. So you just send in your journal article and some money, and they'll publish it. And those are not good journals. Those are typically used by folks that can't get published otherwise in other cases, and so the data that is in those is not reliable or valid, and probably not sound research methodology. There are journals that you have to pay to publish in. Open source journals are becoming very, very popular because a lot of research is done based on grant money, and that grant money can pay to publish your article, and that way your article can be available to everyone for free because you paid to publish it, instead of having someone have to pay to have access to the journal. So paying to publish is not really the deciding factor on whether a journal is good or not, but there are some lists out there of journals that are considered predatory in the types of places you would never want to publish your research. Hopefully this library here will give you a good base on a lot of different, was compiled by Academy Health right there. So they're the ones that put this together overall. So we have our discussion that on still that same topic. And I'll say too that if your topic evolves over time throughout the class, that's fine too. You don't have to necessarily stay with exactly the same topic if you're finding you're not able to get data, or if you change your mind and you don't want to cover that. Just let me know. That's not a big deal. We also have a blog this week. So I think this is the first blog in this case. So what you will do is you'll identify and summarize at least one example of a research design that is reliable and valid, and based on the research that you did for your table last week. So you're going to have a blog post. To do the blog, you'll click blog, and then you can. I don't know if I can. Oh yeah, it will let me create one. I'm not a student, so I have a slightly different view than you do. But you want to create a blog entry. And then you'll actually want to type right in this box. So you can certainly write your blog entry elsewhere, but you'll want to put it right in this box. So it really looks like a blog, like a blog on a website, except I don't have you do them on an external website because of privacy and whatnot. So, but just type it right in this box. And then once you have created your blog, you'll want to do that. That'll actually be due by Friday. So it doesn't have to be super lengthy. Let me go back out to here. So it doesn't have to be super lengthy, paragraph, 2 paragraphs, whatever you think. But put that up in the blog. So that's due by Friday. And then by Sunday, I want you to read one other colleague's blog. And you should be able to see the blogs. I think they'll come up here on the side. I'm not exactly sure how it'll appear to you guys, unfortunately, but I think they'll come up here on the side, and you can just click on it to read it. So you'll go in and read a blog and comment on it. So that would be, and you'll do that by Sunday this week. Okay, sorry about that. I was trying to display everyone's grades to everyone in the class, which is definitely not what I wanted to do. Okay, so let me pull up our quiz question. There's only one question that was missed this week. Everyone did really well on the quiz, so I only have one question to review. So the question was, what distinguishes CINAHL? That's how CINAHL, it's typically pronounced CINAHL. So what distinguishes that from other databases? So the CINAHL database is generally nursing and allied health. We can find lots of helpful information to us in there. Even though it does have a lot of clinical stuff, it also has a lot of non-clinical stuff. So it's really a good source for you to take a look at to do your research, and you can find that in the RMU library. I believe we used to have it, so I'm hoping that we still do, and you can access it there. It is not free to the public, unfortunately. It is not really a social sciences database, and it's really not the premier database for medical literature. But for our world, it's plenty good enough. It really does provide a lot of good data for a health administration area. So, okay. So that is, that's all I got. Let me hop back over to the classroom here. Sorry. So I think that's it. So then I talked about the blog. You've got one more. I think this is the last one of these human subject protection videos. I know they're a little antiquated, but the information is good. And it's better than having you go through there's a training process called CITI. And the CITI training is kind of painful. So rather than have you go through that, I thought a few videos would be better. And then you have your quiz this week. So that's all I've got. Any questions, please let me know. I'll keep everyone updated if for some reason I'm going to be away from the office and unable to answer questions. But right now, as far as I know, we're pretty clear for this week. So just let me know if you need anything. Thanks.